Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Classic Gamer 74. I'm your host Anthony Gamer and I'm Humphrey the Wolf. And in today this is part 2 of AVP, Arcade vs. Port of Frogger. In our previous episode, part 1 of Arcade vs. Port of Frogger, you saw that the game had been ported quite a few times. Yes, on just about every game system there was up until a certain point. Exactly. There was a few that didn't get a port of Frogger, but for the most part, just about every game system between 1981, when the game came out, and around 2000. However, because there were so many game systems that we discussed in our last episode, we had to have a separate episode to show you the number of times that Frogger was ported to personal computers. Even though Frogger was ported several times, I believe the count is close to 20 or something like that. Correct. It's nowhere near the top. There was actually one game that was ported over 100 times. Wow. Oh yeah. So today's trivia question, what is the name of the game that has been ported more times than any other game in history? You think you know the answer? Wait till the end and see if you're correct. Personally, I was surprised. Oh, by the game? Well, not exactly. I knew the game had been ported quite a few times, but I didn't realize it was anywhere near 100. This is also going to be the first episode where I discuss the TRS-80 computer, also known by its fans as the Coco. Well, that's kind of cute. Yeah, it is, but, you know, like, for instance, the ZX Spectrum, what do they call that in England? A Sparky. Exactly. So people that were fans of the TRS-80 call it the Coco. Oh, okay. But anyway, so this will be the very first episode, first of many, in which I will discuss games that were ported to the TRS-80. So, you ready to get started? Oh yes, whenever you are. Alright then, let's get to it.
Alright, and the first port we're going to look at today is from the Atari 8 computer. Now, personally, I love this version. I love the deep, rich colors that you have. Of course, they have the theme song that we all know and love, and they've added a couple other tunes to it as well, such as Yankee Doodle and just a couple other things. Honestly, I have to say, of all the computer ports of Frogger, this one has to be my favorite. I definitely think it's the most beautiful and really shows what the Atari 8 computer was capable of doing. One that I forgot to mention from our last episode, and this was pointed out to me by one of our loyal viewers, was the special StarPath version of Frogger, which was also called the official Frogger. What was the StarPath? StarPath was a special add-on for the Atari 2600. It gave more memory to the games, and therefore the games had better graphics, better sound, etc., etc. Now, one of the games that they created for the StarPath add-on was this. They called it the official Frogger. As you can see, it's a little bit different, more hyped up than the standard 2600 version of Frogger. Now, I did an episode about the StarPath Supercharger about a year or so ago. If you'd like to check out that episode, I'll link it in the description below. But there were quite a few games that were made for this special add-on that really did push the limits of the 2600 beyond that of what it was supposed to, and this was probably one of the most well-known games that was made for that supercharger. When it came to gaming computers, no other computer system was more well-known for this on both sides of the pond than the Commodore 64 computer. So what you're looking at here is the Commodore 64 computer version of Frogger. Now, one thing that's interesting about this version is the fact that it was actually made by Sierra Online, which, as many of you probably know, is the game company that made King's Quest, Police Quest, pretty much anything with Quest for a lot of the computers from that time period. Yeah, pretty much every computer had a Sierra game made for it. That's true. So, therefore, it did not turn out that well. I personally don't like it as much as the version that we just looked at for the Atari 8. I don't like the white frog, for one thing. The frog looks like he's sick. And even though we're looking at the slow version, I really am not all that crazy about it. Personally, I think it's kind of a letdown because of the fact that when it comes to arcade games for the I almost said ColecoVision. Right. The Commodore 64. Most of the time, these ports are about as close as you could possibly get to the arcade. And this one really does fall short of that. Okay, I have to disagree with you on that point. How's that? Well, personally, I think the worst port ever made of Frogger has to be this one, the MS-DOS port. I really think that it was kind of thrown together real quickly, and it just really looks terrible. Honestly, it looks like this was done by somebody who was learning how to program. And honestly, this does not emulate well. Because if you run it through DOSBox like we did, you have to slow it down, but the commands that slow it down are also used in the game, so this has to be my least favorite of all Frogger ports, period. And finally, we're going to talk about your favorite computer system. Of course, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, by looking at the colors, you could probably figure out that this is the ZX Spectrum version of Frogger. Not a bad port, honestly. A little bit hard to control sometimes. The collision detection's a little bit off on it, but honestly, I don't think this was actually made by a big game company. I'm pretty sure this was actually made by an individual because of the fact that the original port for the ZX Spectrum, it wasn't the greatest. Actually, it doesn't even emulate well, but you know, honestly, I don't think this one is that bad. I certainly don't think it's as bad as the MS-DOS, but that's just me. But again, you were pretty used to the ZX Spectrum yourself. Oh, that's true. I mean, after all, I am British. You better be careful saying that. Why is that? Well, you might offend somebody. Oh, that's true. But regardless of the fact, this is probably one of the first versions of Frogger that most people in England ever played. And again, this is the port of Frogger on the ZX Spectrum, or as we call it in England, the Specky. Alright, so next up we have the Apple IIe version. Now, most of the time when Apple would have ported games, generally speaking, these games would sometimes have trouble with, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh yes, they would sometimes have a bit of a delay in playing. However, this one isn't one of them. Honestly, the biggest problem I have with this game is that those lily pads are too small. I thought I make it across, and then I jump, and then I don't make it. But overall, for an Apple IIe, I don't think it's that bad. I really have to agree with you on that one. The graphics are really bright. The game is fun. You don't kind of have that delay. But hey, I agree with you on the fact that those lily pads are way too small. But overall, I would say this one isn't that bad. Well, last but certainly not least, this is the TRS-80 version of Frogger. I really enjoyed this version, even though, as you can see, the colors take a little getting used to, but the colors for the TRS-80 were quite bright. That's, again, I think why some people call it the COCO, standing for color computer, as the colors are quite bright on this. For some folks, it might be a little too bright, but I really liked it, myself, personally. You know, I'll have to agree with you on that, but there's one thing that does kind of make me sad when it comes to ports of Frogger. What's that? Well, you know, it was ported out to just about every game system and computer system, right? But I was a little disappointed when it wasn't ported to the 7800. Well, officially, it wasn't. What do you mean officially? Well, alright, what you're looking at here is Froggy. This is an unofficial port of Frogger. I guess they did that for legal reasons. for the Atari 7800. This was programmed by a gentleman named Matthias Ludke, and as you can see, it is a really, really nice port of Frogger. I honestly think out of all the game system versions, this one has to be as close to the arcade as you can get. Oh, it's very nice. I agree. And so if you have an Atari 7800, you can get this for yourself. So head over to AtariAge.com right now. We will post a link in the description below, and you can get your own copy of Froggy.
And the answer to today's trivia question, what is the name of the game that has been ported over 100 times, making it the most ported game in history? And the answer is
Tetris. This little puzzle game was created in Russia in 1984 and has been ported out more times than any other video game in history. According to some legends, it's as low as 65 and as high as over 100. The exact number is not really well known because of the various phone versions of the game. However, the NES version is probably the most well known. So what is number 2? Well, actually, it's not even close. Number 2 is Dragon's Lair, and it was ported 29 times.
Well, that brings us to the end of another exciting episode of Classic Gamer 74. I really hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. And don't forget to click that little bell icon down there so you'll be notified when we upload new episodes.
In our next episode, by request from one of our loyal viewers, we are going to have games based on the Olympics. So you will not want to miss that.
Well, until next time, this has been Anthony Gamer, and I am Humphrey the Wolf, and we will see you all in the next episode. Until then, have yourselves a great day. Goodbye. Goodbye, everyone. Cheerio, tup tup, and all that kind of stuff. I can really tell you're British. I know.